Well, again, friends, happy St. Patrick's Day. I wore my CUR green today, and I also am wearing my CUR socks from this summer. I think Elizabeth in our national office, if I have that right, Lindsay, I think Elizabeth had some fabulous CUR socks made. So I'm happy to be wearing those today. But for those of you joining us from the national office, or our board of directors or the executive committee or the various divisions in CUR, or you're a member at large, welcome. We're thrilled to have you with us today, especially as we share the great work that has occurred in 2025 with CUR and some of the exciting initiatives that are already underway in 2026. And so this community engagement meeting is really an opportunity to just update you on what's going on with CUR, the various initiatives, our strategic plan, our budget, our finances, as well as the work of our various committees, advisory groups, and working groups. So again, welcome, and may I say, may the luck of the Irish be with you all day long. So Luke, we can move to the next slide, my friend, on objectives. So in our presentation today, we really have kind of 5 major items that we want to cover. So we'll give you the highlights. We'll give you an overview of 2025 and some of our major achievements. We'll also give you an update on membership demographics and how those have been evolving from 2024 to 2025. We'll talk about our educational successes and very exciting work that is underway with badging and credentialing. We'll also talk about undergraduate research advocacy, which, right, that has never been more important than at this point in time, and especially in 2025. And then additional ways for you to engage, we shall also cover. Next slide. So the overall highlights from 2025, and I'm really pleased to share with you that it was an incredibly busy and productive year. So we launched CUR 2030, which is our new strategic plan, and we'll talk about that in greater detail a little later this afternoon. We released 2 on-demand programs with badging opportunities. We increased our federal advocacy efforts, and you'll see that's one of the really key goals in our strategic plan. Involves advocacy and, of course, promoting undergraduate research. We released a booklet and advocacy talking points focused on supporting career readiness through undergraduate research. We developed new volunteer pathways, including our mentoring working group. We also updated our website to add dedicated pages for each COEUR characteristic, outlining related resources, events, and guidance. We launched a new advocacy tool to send personalized letters to your representatives, which I'll say, if you haven't had a chance to use that, it is a fabulous tool. I've used that throughout the year. And then we also released Nora, which is, okay, it's an adorable name, first of all. Nora is our NCUR chatbot. And if you're like, James, what does Nora stand for? Hey, stay tuned. We're going to get to that a little later in one of our slides coming up. So really, friends, I mean, a busy year, an incredibly productive year. And let me say, that is because of your energy and drive, right? The great work going across our divisions, our communities, our working groups, our volunteer base. All the work you do is reflected in what we're summarizing today, as well as an incredibly dynamic national office team. And then we have a great board of directors that I've had the pleasure of working with in my role as president of CUR for this year. Our next slide gives you an overview of our national office staff. And I thought it would be nice to turn it over to Lindsay Curry at this stage, our executive officer, to chat about the really dynamic team that we have in our national office. So Lindsay.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah, I have the pleasure of working with James and the board, and also this great group of individuals that help manage the day-to-day and all of the output at CUR. And so I think many of you are familiar with this team, but if you're not, I'll give you a little bit of an overview of who they are and what they're working on, and certainly hope that you continue to engage with each of them during your experience at CUR. So Heather Wakefield, we can thank her for everything from NCUR to ConnectUR to each of those online courses that James was talking about. If it happens to deal with any of our educational programming, Heather is kind of the overseer of that and the leader on the team to make sure all of those pieces come together. Pam Dodge in the national office, she is our director of organizational and government operations. So if you recently took part in the elections for division reps, Pam is managing all of those pieces along with the national nominations and leadership development committee to make sure we continue to have such an exceptional board, and making sure the election nominations process and onboarding for our volunteers goes as smoothly as possible, in addition to making sure things like our finances and our HR pieces, all of the compliance of the work of the national office gets done as rightly as possible. Everything that you see here that is beautiful, all of the swag that you see at our conferences and our events, all of the emails that are designed is thanks to Elizabeth Morris, who's our Director of Brand Engagement. She really makes sure that CUR is always looking its best for our community. And then we have Natalie Jones. She's our Senior Manager of Customer Experience. If you have ever called into CUR, written an email, it is either Natalie or Jody who is answering those and making sure that you get yourself registered, your membership renewed, making sure that you have all the pieces you need. So her right hand is Jody Wilson, who is just the dynamic duo. They even at the bottom of our website, you'll see the two of them. You'll see them at our conferences checking folks in. They're just, here to make sure that your experience with CUR is exceptional. Todd Wagner, who's also with us today, and making sure with Luke that our online presentation, our events go smoothly. All of those CUR conversations that you're going to, he's working with the divisions to get those scheduled. The content on LinkedIn and making sure that we're sharing your stories and undergraduate research highlights. Todd is making sure our best foot forward there. And then Tori, who is the newest member of our team, is supporting Heather with all of our event logistics, all of the pieces of the speaker experience. If you submitted a session to ConnectUR, Tori's going to make sure that your session is taking place at the right time, that you have the details that you need. It's a really mighty team that does kind of exceptional work every day, but really is here to make sure that you have the best experience at CUR that you can, and that we continue to bring you the resources and support that you all need.
Great, Lindsay, thank you. And let me echo that. I mean, it really is a mighty team. One of my great joys as president of CUR this year has been the ability to work with the national office staff on a variety of issues. And not only do they keep the trains running on time, but they are constantly looking at innovative ways to work on behalf of our organization and serve our membership. So I'm really grateful for that. Our next slide gives you an overview of the board of directors. And I want to note that, again, I have the great pleasure of working with a terrific executive committee, along with Lindsay, our executive officer. The other members of our executive committee are, of course, myself in the role of president of CUR this year, Karen, who is our president-elect, Maria, who is our immediate past president, and then Linda, who is our treasurer and chair of the finance committee. And again, I want to thank Karen, Maria, and Linda, who offer me wise advice and helpful counsel at all of our executive committee meetings. We meet every other week to deal with issues, topics, and innovations that are arising within the organization here that we all love. We also have a great board. We meet each quarter, so we meet 4 times throughout the year. We just had, I think, a very productive meeting in February. We met back in August and November, and then we'll have our final meeting in May. We have 9 additional board members, in addition to myself, Karen, Maria, and Linda. And so John, Lance, Winnie, Lourdes, Sean, Eric, Sarah, Hasib, and Tim. Again, I am grateful that we have a dynamic board, a visionary board. What we've tried to do with each board meeting this year is a foresight exercise, looking at challenges in the higher education landscape. And so we've talked about AI. Our first board meeting of this academic year, we looked at AI and the challenges that brings to higher education. We also looked at the questioning of authority, the questioning of expertise, distrust in all things expert, and what that means for an association like CUR, what that means for higher education. At our most recent meeting, we looked at kind of a 5-year roadmap for our strategic plan and how that will unfold. And so again, a shout out to my fellow board members. It's a great group to work with to keep our organization forward focused and looking at not just the next year, but my goodness, what are the challenges, say, over the next 5 years for our organization? And so speaking of our strategic plan, you can see on the next slide that we unveiled CUR 2030 in 2025. And so the strategic plan was basically crafted from the fall of 2024 through the spring of 2025. It was adopted by the board in late spring 2025, and we unveiled it. Some of you may recall that right before our Connect UR meeting, as we were wrapping up our annual leadership meeting, it was an opportunity to unveil this to the broader CUR community. And we have been implementing it basically since the summer throughout this academic year. There are, if we go clockwise on the image in front of you, we have basically 3 main goals for the strategic plan. And so the top left, you can see elevating undergraduate research, which deals with representing and advocating for undergraduate research in society. Again, that's never been more important than right now. Our second main goal is driving excellence and innovation in undergraduate research, right? So how do we define and celebrate excellence across higher education? And then, as you can see at the bottom, our third goal is empowering the undergraduate research community. And so how do we create community in CUR? And the goals are listed there for you to look at. But I also want to mention too that we have cross-cutting themes across this strategic plan. So across all 3 of those goals, broadening participation, for example, the fiscal sustainability and viability of CUR are critical cross-cutting themes that we see across this strategic plan. And again, I want to give a shout out to Lindsay as well as the national office team who have put into effect basically an operational dashboard, right? So how do we measure our goals for elevating undergraduate research? How do we measure our goals for driving excellence and innovation in undergraduate research, or empowering the undergraduate research community, fostering that sense of community and connection with all of you that are joining us in this session today? Well, friends, I'll be honest with you, we didn't have this in our last strategic plan. So having a pathway of assessment, an operational dashboard, which we will continue to modify that and adjust throughout the 5-year strategic plan, I think that has been a key innovation and puts us on a good path forward, that we're not only charging ahead in these 3 areas, but we're also carefully looking at how do we operationalize this and how do we assess our achievements in these areas. Well, so speaking of empowering the undergraduate research community and our wonderful elected leadership and members, let's take a look at our next slide, which provides you some helpful information on our elected leadership. We have 26 counselors, 221 divisional representatives, 13 divisions, and then 112 collaboration group members. And you might say, well, James, what is a collaboration group? Well, Thank you for asking. It's essentially the committees, the advisory, and the working groups. And you can see in the right-hand column, we have 10 committees within CUR. So the executive committee that I just mentioned earlier, the compensation committee, which basically determines the compensation for and helps to craft the annual evaluation of our executive officer each year. That's myself, Maria, Karen, and Linda. We have a finance committee that Linda chairs. We have the nominations and leadership development committee that many of you serve on that are in this session, and that's chaired by Maria as our immediate past president. We have a SPUR editorial board, an Arts and Humanities Faculty Mentor Award committee. We have our Aura Award Committee, and that's a very cool award representing, essentially institutional excellence campus-wide in undergraduate research. We have the CUR Fellows Award, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, about some modifications we've made there. And then, of course, the CUR Goldwater Scholars Faculty Mentor Award Committee and the Sylvia Ronco Innovative Faculty Mentor Award. Our advisory and working groups, again, you can kind of read through those and take a look at those. I mean, a couple of areas that I would call attention to are, of course, our advocacy group, broadening participation, our annual conference committee that helps to organize and plan Connect UR, and then our career readiness and resource development group. But again, there are groups in there that, may have a 6-month charge or a 1-year charge that are doing work on, say, mentoring or doing work on student scholarship and presentation characteristics of excellence. And that helps to guide the work of CUR and, documents that we may be producing or items that you may see appearing on our website. So it's a dynamic organization, I think, in terms of our committees, our advisory and working groups, and then most importantly, our elected membership and our volunteers. Well, I promised earlier we would kind of give you an update on our membership demographics, and that follows in the next slide. So I am excited to share that we have almost 15,000 total CUR members. You can see it's 14,889. I'm going to round that up to 15,000. That's a 6% increase from 2024. I think it's cool that the number of states that have had an increase in institutional membership is 5, and the number of countries where members of CUR can be found is 9. So kind of a nice profile of our membership. You can see below in the green bars, the CUR green bars, or let's say the St. Patrick's Day bars for today, and then the blue bars, you can see where we've seen some increases or decreases across our membership profile and our membership demographics. And my friends, just to highlight a few items, we have increased in terms of our MSI percent, so minority serving institutions that are members of CUR has increased from 26 to 29%. We've seen an increase among institutions with enrollments of 5,001 to 10,000 students. So that's gone up quite substantially from 25 to 46%. And then also, if you look at doctoral intensive universities, that profile has also increased from 32% to 42% from 2024 to 2025. But again, excited that we've seen a 6% increase in overall membership at almost 15,000 members. And as many of you know, in the higher education landscape, right, we've seen memberships and associations decline. We've seen, faculty and campuses having to make difficult decisions about what organizations they are even members of. And so the fact that we've seen growth from 2024 to 2025, I think is a point that we can be excited about and very proud of. For our next slide, just to give you some event statistics. So all the wonderful events we do, right, from Connect UR to NCUR to Grant Dialogues to webinars and virtual events that many of you hold within your divisions, we've seen participants at a little over 6,100. That's a 6% increase. We had 260 speakers, 973 event volunteers, which is almost a 20% increase. NCUR attendance. I'm excited that 2025 NCUR had 2,740 attendees, which is almost a 20% increase from 2024 to 2025. And then virtual events. We had 31 of those, again, with an increase of 55%. So a lot going on with CUR. And as Lindsay eloquently said earlier when she was introducing our national office staff, oh my goodness, a lot of great work that they do supporting a plethora of events across the CUR landscape and across your divisions and committees. So I'm excited to share that information with you. Also, not just in terms of events and programming, but a lot of new content being rolled out by CUR. And so to highlight for you, as I think I mentioned earlier, we've added on-demand courses. So these are flexible, impactful, self-paced learning courses. In July of 2025, so summer of last year, we rolled out 2 on-demand courses providing strategies and expert insights into assessment and funding. Very proud of our workbook or our booklet on where career readiness meets undergraduate research. And folks, probably on your campuses, but if we were to survey strategic plans across universities, I would dare say that probably the most common theme, universities, small, big, private, public, it's career readiness, right? And so the great work that Gene Mikulicek and others had done with a position statement several years ago, plus this booklet, CUR is on the cutting edge with career readiness and undergraduate research. With COEUR 2.0, again, excited to note that we have updated our websites to add dedicated pages for each characteristic of COEUR. We have website updates, and you can see there from award page restructuring to advocacy. Again, I mentioned earlier that we have the automated and personalized writing tool for advocating for undergraduate research. I found that incredibly helpful. I encourage you to look at that on our website if you haven't had a chance to do so. And then Nora, our NCUR chatbot, again, enables fast and effective responses to questions from prospective students. My student used it the other day. I think my student was probably saying, Dr. LaPlant, Nora appears to be far smarter and wiser than you are. And I'm like, I don't take that as a criticism. It is a world of AI that we live in. And what does Nora stand for? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. There's a prize at the end when I let you know what Nora stands for. So I want to talk about SPUR next on our next slide. Thanks again, Luke. And so, hey, as a former editor-in-chief of SPUR, this is near and dear to my heart. I want to thank Pam, who has done such lovely work as our SPUR editor-in-chief. So a shout out to Pam. 4 issues to kind of quickly highlight in 2025. We had our winter issue, that was March of 2025, that focused on a wide range of topics, right, from mentoring to career readiness to science identity. I loved the spring theme, which focused on vertically integrated projects. So across different levels, right, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, but large scale, long-term, multidisciplinary research teams were highlighted here. Our summer issue, again, focused on best practices on mentorship, as well as perspectives and insights on mentoring. And then our fall issue looked at the responsible and ethical conduct of undergraduate research. We had a total of 86 authors, which I think is impressive throughout 2025 in SPUR. And then our best article in 2025, How Research and Mentorship Shape STEM Pathways for Community College Students by Stephanie Ramos and Randy Bell. And so great to see their work highlighted, and my compliments. And let me thank reviewers. Plenty of those individuals are probably joining us today, but a special thank you to the reviewers of SPUR, as well as those who serve on the editorial board, as well as those who have submitted articles and helped disseminate this across the higher ed community. So thank you. We appreciate you for that. Well, on our next slide, as I've been kind of emphasizing throughout, and we see this on our own campuses, right, with our friends who serve in state legislatures, our friends who serve in the executive branch or governor's offices, but also at the congressional level and the presidential level. Advocating for undergraduate research is so critical. And, not only is it a key pillar, not only is it a key goal, and strategy within our strategic plan. But a lot of good work is going on here. And I want to thank Lindsay. You know, Lindsay has a plethora of wonderful connections throughout higher education. CUR benefits tremendously from that. So we've been working with associations and key stakeholders to protect research opportunities for students and institutions. Our lobbying partners in Washington, D.C. are also a big piece of that. We engage policymakers, funders, and higher education leaders, right? So we can continue to position ourselves as not only the go-to organization on undergraduate research, but also to make sure that higher ed writ large remains very strong. And so you can see, I won't read through all of those, but you can see the advocacy, collaborations, and partnerships from, AAC&U, to the American Psychological Association, to the National Association of the Academies of Science. So we've partnered with a myriad of organizations, and we've also added additional resources on advocacy. So we had a monthly fall STEM talk on advocacy works. We had an editorial in Spur, in issue 8.3 in the fall, championing undergraduate research in uncertain times. We've done legislative updates on federal policy developments. That was done in November. Also, we released a deep dive memo on the Department of Education executing 6 interagency agreements. And then also we've updated our advocacy toolkit to include career readiness. And as you can see there in the bottom right, we've had over 200 personalized advocacy letters that have been used from our new toolkit, right? So utilized by members to communicate with their elected representatives on emphasizing the centrality and importance of undergraduate research in the higher education experience. Well, speaking of advocacy, kind of a key part of that is in our next slide on the STAR program. So Scholars Transforming Through Research. And many of you may know, but if you're not aware of this really dynamic program, we essentially engage students in the varied stages of the undergraduate research process, right? So they gain valuable skills in how to communicate with staff members, with legislators, with other elected representatives. And you can see that in 2025, we're proud to report that we had 60 total teams accepted. 54 institutions were represented across 22 states. And it's impressive to note you're seeing a lot of growth measures here. So from 2024 to 2025, we saw almost a 40% increase in our STAR participants, over 200 participants in 2025 with 84 meetings on the Hill. And the quote from Mason Martin in the bottom right, I think is quite powerful, where a team of one, right? Mason mentions being a team of one from Purdue University, but the connections that were made with not only a United States senator and that senator's office, but then back on campus at their undergraduate research expo, being able to connect to a regional director from a member of Congress's office is pretty cool. And those are the things that we're trying to facilitate to tell our story, grow the undergraduate research enterprise, and most importantly, continue federal funding, but also state support, and not forgetting our friends at the state legislative level. Well, on our next slide, in terms of exhibitors and sponsors, and again, thrilled with the work of our national office here for NCUR 2025. We had a total of 120 NCUR exhibitors. That was a 27% increase. We also had a total of 8 sponsors for a 33% increase. And again, this is a valuable part of connecting campuses, connecting various groups and associations with our participants at NCUR, and it's an opportunity to also generate revenue for our organization. And that good work continues into 2026 in terms of exhibitors and sponsors. And Karen will be giving you that update next year in terms of all the great work at NCUR 2026, plus a lot of other cool stuff underway in CUR. Well, the financial update is on the next slide. And again, But this is a key piece, right? What is our financial stability? What is our financial health? And I'm pleased to report to you that the financial health of CUR is very strong. I mean, let me start with the right-hand graph that you can see. So while we look at the dip from 2021 to 2022, I want to call your attention to the sustained growth in our investments from roughly 3.5 million in December of 2022 to 4.6 million in December of 2025. So again, we're on the right trajectory there, and that has benefited the organization. You can see in the left-hand column that while operational expenses exceeded operational revenue by a little more than $78,000, and a lot of that was initiatives that we were investing in. You can see that overall, with the investment growth in CUR, we earned $415,652 from our investments in the 2024-2025 fiscal year. And so while expenses did exceed revenue, and we drew upon our opportunity fund, you'll see about a $74,000 draw from our opportunity fund. And that was really to support two key things: our online course development and badging that I mentioned earlier, as well as technology support and technology enhancements in CUR. We still came out positive, right? As the slide notes at the top, we had a positive change in net assets of almost 200 or over 233,000 for CUR, and we received a clean audit. So again, the financials are strong, and pleased to share that good news about the audit and the financial health of the organization. And that opportunity fund, may I note, that opportunity fund will be increasingly important as we enact the vision of CUR 2030, right? As we innovate and move forward on our strategic plan. Well, friends, kind of gives you an overview of the past year. Let me talk a little bit about 2026. So 2026 on our next slide is off to a great start. And again, I appreciate Lindsay's great work in the national office. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, we've revamped our grant dialogue. So through a new partnership with the National Grants and Management Association, we hosted a revamped grant dialogues. It was a 2-day virtual meeting in February of 2026. You can also see in the top right that we have a new Fellows Award criteria. So I appreciate the suggestions of our fellows, CUR Fellows Committee, the support of the Executive Committee, and the support of the board, that in 2026 we are naming our first cohort of fellows, and that is exciting. In the middle row, so I've been promising this, I know you've been at the edge of your seat. James, NORA, what does NORA stand for? Well, friends, NORA is the NCUR Online Research Assistant. But again, it's our first foray into the use of AI. As I said, one of my wonderful students who's presenting at NCUR next month in Richmond, Virginia, probably finds that chatbot more effective than I am, or more useful than I am, which again, maybe is no surprise. And then we've also extended our on-demand educational courses, as you can see in the middle right column. So we're really excited about a partnership with Higher Ed Plus. And so it's going to allow us to offer more on-demand education courses for our members and for our volunteer base. We have a mentor working group that I'm very excited about, again, in your bottom left-hand corner. And we had over 80 applications for a mentor working group. And basically we charge that group with conducting listening sessions and outreach with CUR stakeholders to identify mentoring needs and priorities, to develop recommendations for the structure, focus, and scope of a pilot mentoring program, and then to define the goals, resource needs, and success measures to inform a sustainable, impactful initiative. And so we have almost half a dozen members working in that CUR member mentoring working group. And I will note that this is a nice model that we're pleased with in terms of seeking applications from across the CUR landscape, in terms of faculty in different disciplines, faculty at different ranks, people that have been active in CUR and in higher at a campus, or maybe are at an association outside of a campus. But it's a great way, I think, to seek tremendous diversity in these working groups. And so when we were having conversations throughout the fall and even last summer, what was one of the top themes that we saw rise to the top with CUR 2030? Well, it was really mentoring, right? What we heard across our divisions, and that was in your plans for the year. What we heard from our membership was the topic of supporting our members through mentorship. And so this mentoring group, like I said, listening to her, gathering information, and then going to make a recommendation to the executive committee, which we hope to then take to the board in terms of a pilot project that we can move forward on. But again, I'd like to view this as kind of responsiveness of our organization, as well as the leadership to what we're hearing across the divisions, and then what's percolating up in CUR 2030. And then in the bottom right, our revised award timelines. Again, we have amazing contributions from our members as mentors. We have amazing accomplishments by our students. And what we have endeavored to do, and the work continues, what we've endeavored to do is to streamline and simplify the process, especially for user friendliness. If you have a colleague applying for a CUR award, or maybe a student is applying for an award that a division gives for a conference presentation. So again, from our revamped dialogues to a cohort of CUR fellows, because we have so many fabulous individuals doing incredible work, it's nice to be able to recognize more than one. We have our dear friend Nora as our chatbot. We have new courses, so stay tuned for on-demand education courses. I'm excited to see what our member mentor working group will propose to us to address this kind of key issue percolating up in the CUR 2030 strategic plan, and then the revised award timelines. Again, how can we simplify what CUR is doing in terms of recognizing faculty excellence and supporting our students? And so our last slide, I believe, assuming I haven't lost papers in my copier, our last slide is add these events to your calendar. Well, okay, it's coming up next month, so I'm pretty sure NCUR 2026 is already on your calendar, but keep in mind, that's coming up in, a little less than a month in Richmond, Virginia, so we hope to see many of you there. Also, wanted to just call your attention to Connect UR on site in College Park, Maryland, will be the 22nd through the 24th, with the online component June 17th through the 18th. The early bird bundle deal. So, okay, I'm gonna probably start sounding like a used car salesman right here, but friends, the early bird bundle deal, don't miss out on it. It ends April 17th. You can bundle, or maybe I sound like Flo from Progressive Insurance if I'm talking about bundling or State Farm, but I digress. When you bundle, you save. You're probably annoyed by those commercials and maybe even growing annoyed of me, but that's okay. I promise I'm done soon. So you can bundle by April 17th for the online and then the on-site component. The STAR program, right? We were just celebrating such wonderful success in terms of the growth of participants and states represented, as well as Capitol Hill visits. So the STAR program, 2026, 2027, application process will open this summer. And as we noted from the testimonials, this can be such a great resource for your campus, as well as you and your students. So keep an eye out for the 2026, 2027 STAR program. And then NCUR 2027, never too soon to start chatting about that, with our friends in Grand Rapids, Michigan, hosting us. Had a great Connect UR just recently in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so April 12th, right? Mark your calendar, April 12th through April 14th, 2027 for NCUR 2027, and submissions will open in September of 2026. And so, friends, I wanted to kind of say as we, and I think that is our last slide. Luke, let me know if it's not. Okay, thank you. I'm seriously having problems with my copier today where it kind of prints every other page. There's a lot that you can see. And I know I kind of flew through that, but there's a lot going on in CUR in terms of programming, in terms of outreach, advocacy, engaging our membership, but then also defining and recognizing excellence. We're excited about where the strategic plan is taking us. I didn't quite mention it in my presentation, but I wanted to kind of note in closing that We've constructed working groups in the board. Maria is leading the group on advocacy and elevating undergraduate research. Karen is leading the group on empowering our undergraduate research community. I'm leading the group on defining excellence and innovation in undergraduate research. But those three goals I gave you earlier, we have board working groups. So it's members of the leadership team chairing it. We have representatives from the national office, as well as multiple members of the board that are crafting our strategy in terms of advocacy and elevating undergraduate research, defining and recognizing innovation, and then also empowering our undergraduate research community. And as I said earlier, we have kind of a working 5-year roadmap that we've shared with the board. And so there will be a lot for those coming up as future divisional chairs, future presidents of the organization, future members of the board. There's going to be a lot of cool work and I think accomplishments that are underway with the organization.